All right, I think we'll get started. There is going to be a recording made of this, so for those who might show up late or who are not able to make it, we'll be sharing that on social in the days to come. So yeah, without further ado, I'm going to start us off with a quick presentation, and then we will get into some question and answers after. Can everyone see that? All right. So welcome to the first ever Ethermint community call. Thank you all for being here. Before I get into the presentation, I'd like to introduce you all to our team. My name is Colin Schwartz. I'm the product manager of Ethermint. Our project manager is Lerna, so she handles more of the day-to-day matters and I deal with more of the high-level stuff. Federico is our tech lead, and then we have three excellent developers in Daniel, Elizabeth, and Freddie. So today I'm going to walk you through the beginning of ChainSafe's involvement in the Ethermint project through a grant we got back in 2019. And I'll then touch on the second grant, which we are currently working on. I'm going to give a quick update on the current status of the project, and then I'll get into some more granular detail on our next steps. Then I'm going to hand it off to Federico, who will talk about our work upgrading to Stargate. Obviously, this has been a big deal in the ecosystem for quite some time now, and I thought that you would all be interested in hearing about our experience with this big upgrade. And then finally, we'll open it up to a question and answer at the end. All right, so before we get into the updates, I just wanted to draw your attention to a distinction about Ethermint, which is there are sort of two notions of Ethermint. And one is Ethermint as a module, which behaves like the EVM does. So this is modular, it provides plug and play Ethereum compatibility, and it's adaptable to any use case which you'd like. And then there's Ethermint as a full blockchain, as a Cosmos zone. And this has been our focus for the last several months. It includes building a full implementation of the EVM using the Cosmos SDK, and then creating a zone that will be interoperable with the entire Cosmos ecosystem through IBC. And it's also going to be interoperable with Ethereum, Ethereum Classic, Polkadot, and many more blockchains through another project at ChainSafe called Chainbridge. So both of these are really fascinating implementations, and you might want to use one or both depending on your needs and use cases. So ChainSafe's story with Ethermint starts back in 2019 when we were awarded an initial grant. The scope of that grant was to implement the EVM as a Cosmos SDK module. So this is more in line with the first notion, Ethermint as a module. The grant also included a deliverable to implement Ethereum transactions in the Cosmos SDK and to implement a Web3 compatible API layer. So that work was finished by the end of 2019. And then in the spring of 2020, we received a second grant, which was more along the lines of the second notion of Ethermint, a full Cosmos zone. So the deliverables of that grant were to do a set of benchmarking, which we completed first, benchmarking the Web3 API and EVM against Geth, and then implement the Web3 personal API to allow for Ethereum-style key generation and account management, implementing pending state queries through that API, and then launching a testnet and integrating IBC. This is where we're at right now in our process. The testnet has been up and running since the end of last year. You can head over there right now and deploy any code you would like, play around with it, see what you can do. The IBC integration is coming with the Stargate upgrade, so we're getting quite near to having that ready. This will be sort of the vanilla IBC that comes out of the box with Stargate, and there's certainly more that we can do with this in the future. But for now, that will be the first version of IBC that we support. And so that is the focus of our current efforts. Yeah, and then the final two deliverables are the game of Ethermint, which will be our incentivized testnet, which will be directly followed by the mainnet launch. So game of Ethermint will run, it'll be similar to game of stakes, but more bespoke to Ethermint in a number of ways. So just to get a little more granular on our next steps for the project, as I said, Stargate and IBC, we're wrapping that up now. Once that is all finished and we've run some tests and made sure that everything's been integrated properly, we're going to rerun the benchmarks. We're curious to see what sort of performance enhancements Stargate will lend to Ethermint. There's a change in encoding. There's a lot of exciting new aspects of this upgrade. And so we want to see how that plays out and what sort of performance we'll have post Stargate. And then based on those benchmarks and sort of our analysis of where we are at that point, we'll likely do some further optimizations. We're going to look at a number of things that come out of those benchmarks and sort of plan accordingly for what else we want to see in the project before we feel like we're ready to get into the actual incentivized testnet. And sort of running concurrently to all of that, we've been talking about what the token economics is going to look like. That's been a conversation ongoing since last year. We've come quite far in it now. We've been talking to several key stakeholders. And so we're ironing out the final details of what that's going to look like, both in terms of distribution and then how the economics will look after launch. So we will be excited to share that with the community as soon as it's ready. So stay tuned for all of that information as well. And then the final two deliverables, the game of Ethermint and the mainnet launch. And those are going to run directly concurrently to each other. The current test net is to test out sort of the tech side of things and make sure we can identify as many bugs as possible from a technical perspective. And then the game of Ethermint will be very focused and incentivized to test out the economics and let validators get involved and try out how everything works. And so that will likely run for 6 weeks, and the end of the game of Ethermint will be followed directly by our mainnet launch. And then I did want to just say that, after mainnet launch, that this is just the beginning of the story. We plan on working on this project indefinitely and encourage community members to get involved and do the same. The use cases only get more exciting after this becomes a live zone that can interoperate with other Cosmos zones and with other blockchains. All right. So thank you for listening, and I'm going to pass it off to Federico, who's going to chat a little about Stargate.
Hey, yeah, just wanted to talk briefly about the Stargate migration. For the ones who don't know about Stargate, this is the next big release coming out on the Cosmos SDK, which is a framework that Ethermint has been built into. So Stargate brings a bunch of performance optimizations by changing the encoding format. It also, by default, enables IBC interoperability and support for token transfers. These are fungible token transfers and not NFTs. And it will allow you to create any IBC application module on top of the IBC core components that are available already on the SDK. So besides IBC, there are like a bunch of Tendermint improvements, a bunch of refactors that have been done to the Tendermint reactors on the consensus layers, and also state sync. So you will be able to start your node and sync with the network in a couple minutes instead of previously, which you had to take hours. And so like that's big that's a big overview. Of course, there are like more improvements related to the encoding format. For example, the addition of, for example, gRPC services to for querying, and the deprecation of legacy REST endpoints and other um, like um, legacy keyring implementations migrated to new ones, and migration from some components to the supply module, to the bank module, etc. So we've been doing a lot of, in summary, this release contains a lot of breaking changes from a release point of view. Not only state machine breaking changes, but also API breaking changes. And so I've been working on upgrading Ethermint to the latest SDK, and the challenges are mostly that Ethermint is by far the most complex application in terms of migration. There are like several pieces that make this a really complex application, and most of them are related to the unique key types used by Ethermint, which are compatible with Ethereum. So instead of using the default key type, which is the SecP 256K1 from Tendermint, we're using the one supported natively by Ethereum, so that you can use your same keys that you use, for example, on your wallet, such as MetaMask or any other wallet on Ethereum, and you can interoperate with those keys on Ethermint. That migration from the legacy Keybase implementation to the new keyring was really extensive. On the surface of changes were really extensive as well. The migration from Amino to Protobuf also included migration of all the types that we had on the EVM module to Proto messages, and the deprecation of the legacy REST endpoints that we had, and the introduction of new gRPC endpoints for querying, so that we can additionally support them not only from a standalone point of view, but also on the JSON RPC and WebSocket client services that we support on Ethermint. And this is the final part that is the most complex, is that since we are introducing two new services, besides the service layers that are provided by the SDK by default, we had to migrate the JSON RPC and the WebSocket into a new configuration file, so that we were able to sort of like support that natively on Ethermint. So we had to, in order to do that, we had to fork the server from the SDK. And
please continue, Federico.
yeah, and as I was saying, that's the relevant set of changes that we had to do for Stargate.
Thank you. Yeah, any questions from the audience on Stargate or on any other aspects about Ethermint? Feel free to speak up or ask in the chat also. We have one here. So with the Stargate release, what happens to the REST RPC? Has it been replaced with gRPC? Can you weigh in there?
Sorry, I missed it.
It's written in the chat here. What happens with the Stargate release? What happens to the REST RPC? Has it been replaced with gRPC? Or does
so JSON RPC, which is the one that it's supported by Ethereum natively, is still compatible. It's only the underlying interfaces that have been changed. With regards to REST IPC, the underlying modules from the SDK have all been migrated to the to use gRPC and gRPC gateway for REST endpoint compatibility. And so, well, the EVM module didn't have any REST endpoint support. The only thing that you can use with EVM module was JSON RPC. So we introduced, migrated all the query formats to use gRPC under the hood instead of using the REST legacy queries.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions? We got, okay, so another
question. Will Ethermint?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was reading that. In what ways will Ethermint be able to interact with other Cosmos zones via IBC? So the Stargate migration enables fungible token transfers by default. What I mean with fungible token transfers is that you'll be able to transfer tokens from the account bank module on Ethermint to the bank module of another account on, say, the Cosmos Hub or any other, or like even Binance Chain if they support IBC eventually. So that's what it will be enabled by default. There are like multiple extensions towards that in the future that could be supported, and that are more regarding like smart contract interoperability, but that is currently not supported by this default migration to Stargate.
Awesome, thank you, Federico. Anyone have any other questions, maybe more general questions about the roadmap or maybe use cases of Ethermint? All right, well, I'm just posting in the chat if you do want to reach out later, or if you have any other questions, or if you'd like to get involved. I just posted a link to our Ethermint Discord channel. There's also a link I'm about to post to our resources page. We have a really great docs page. This is the resources section, so it goes in order of roughly of descending complexity. So there's everything there from people who are totally new to the project to experienced developers who want to get into the nitty-gritty details. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming. If there are no more questions, like I said, feel free to reach out on Discord, check out the documentation, and we'll probably be hosting one of these, well, several more moving forward, and especially after big releases or as we make sort of the final steps in our roadmap towards launch. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again for coming.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.